Hi, I'm Madeline Lucas. I am 29 years old. I am from Australia and I've been living in Uruguay for 4.5 years now. Bienvenido and welcome to the very first episode of Mate with a Mate. With this series, my goal is to speak with as many different foreigners living here in Uruguay as I can, from all different ages, from all around the world, and all different walks of life, in order to share with you the responses to my most frequently asked questions living here in Uruguay. What do I like? What do I dislike? What do I regret doing? What would I suggest to someone else who is moving here in the future? How much do things cost? Etc, etc. So all of that is what we're going to dive into in this series, but today being the first episode, or I'm kind of calling this the episode number 0 because of course I'm just sitting here by myself. And for today's episode, I thought I would test out the questions that I've written for my guests and answer them myself. So this video today is going to act as a bit of a pilot to this new series of mine, as well as an update to my frequently asked questions, because I have had this channel on YouTube for over 4 years now, and I'm sure there are people who have seen my videos from 2020 and they might think, oh, that is still her opinion today. And the thing with the internet is, once you upload something, you don't know when people are going to see it. Yes, a lot of people saw those videos back in 2020 when they were new and relevant, but there are still people watching them today who might not realize that through time, of course, my opinions about the country and life here have changed. So before I ramble on for too long, I'm gonna have another sip of my mate and get on to the first lot of questions. Where are you from? I was born in Adelaide, South Australia, and lived the first 24 years of my life about 40 minutes outside of the city there, in the suburbs of South Australia. How long have you been in Uruguay? I moved to Uruguay in March of 2020, so it has been, well, I'm recording this video in October of 2024, so let's just say 4.5 years. Did you move here alone? No. I moved to Uruguay with my then fiance, now husband, Alejandro. Why choose Uruguay? Did you have other options? While yes, we technically could have gone anywhere in the world, my husband Alejandro, his mother is originally from Uruguay. He did not grow up in Uruguay, his family traveled around a lot, and his father is from South Africa, so very multicultural family. But Uruguay is in his blood, he has family here, and he is legally a citizen of the country, so we figured that either Uruguay or South Africa would be the easiest countries for us to migrate to based on his heritage. I'm not sure if that is true or not, but the reason we picked Uruguay over South Africa is safety. I'm not going to go into the safety of South Africa in this video, but Uruguay was the better choice. I had also started learning Spanish, so coming to a Spanish-speaking country was exciting for me, and it just seemed like a good idea. So while yes, we moved to Uruguay for family, I would not have moved here if these other things hadn't also been true. If Uruguay wasn't also a very safe country, if it wasn't a stable country, if the economy wasn't good, if it didn't have good healthcare, blah, blah, blah. So there are lots of other factors that made me feel good about the decision to move to Uruguay, but originally the choice was based on family. Are you here indefinitely, or how long are you here for? This is a question that is kind of difficult for me to answer. We moved here originally in 2020 with the idea of staying maybe 2, maybe 3 years while we processed my husband's visa for Australia. So the goal is not to live here forever. The goal was always to go back to Australia at some point once we got the official permanent Australian visa for my husband. That is still the plan, but it has been a little bit delayed. Originally, it was because of the pandemic. We kind of lost a year, if not 2 years. We also lost all of our savings during that time, just trying to survive in a new country during a global pandemic. Our goal originally while being in Uruguay was to use this as a base while we traveled around different countries of South America, and still at this point we have not seen nearly as much of South America as I would like. So who knows, I could be here for another year, it could be another 2 years, 3 years. I'm not entirely sure, but we're just taking it day by day. Would you ever leave Uruguay to live somewhere else? Where and why? If my family is watching this, then I'm sorry, but yes, I would consider living in a different country other than Uruguay or Australia. While we were in Spain this last year, I loved it. I think it was incredible, and I could definitely see myself living in Spain, either in Madrid or in even a country town in Spain, un pueblito. I already speak Spanish. Of course, Spain Spanish is going to be a bit of a change again, but I'm prepared to do that. And I don't know, I feel like while part of me does think that if I'm going to move again, practically it makes more sense to just go back to Australia and settle down and start a family there, close to my own family, to my parents and my sisters and my nieces. But who knows, there's definitely the possibility of going somewhere else. I would also like the idea of going somewhere like Italy, but I don't speak Italian, so I would have to learn a whole new language again. And while I would like to keep learning new languages, learning it to the point of living in a country, I don't know if I want to go through that again. So if we did move, it would probably be to a Spanish-speaking country. What was your first impression of the country, and has it changed? You can kind of go back and see my first impression of the country based on my original videos. My view was definitely tainted by the time period, and that, I mean, it's not good or bad, it's just a fact. I moved here, and within days, within weeks, the pandemic was in the country. So my first impression of Uruguay, like that first day or that first week, was wow, it was a nice country. Driving from the airport to like the center of Montevideo to Pocitos, where we were staying at the time, I'm not gonna lie, I did think, okay, this is a small country. Like there wasn't a lot of space between the suburbs and the airport and then like the city. Montevideo is a small city, and I guess the fact that it's the capital of the whole country and yet it is smaller than my city of Adelaide in Australia, which is the capital of the state, but by Australian standards is considered a smaller city. I don't know what I was expecting. I was honestly very ignorant before moving to Uruguay. I did not do a lot of research, so a lot of things about the country surprised me. Again, because I wasn't moving here based on research, I was moving here based on that family connection, and I figured, oh, it'll be fun to just discover things while I'm here, to learn as I go. And so because of that, I didn't really know much about the population or the size of things. I was not aware at the time that 50% of the population live in Montevideo. So, you know, you live and you learn. I do want to quickly mention that the fact that Uruguay is a small country and that Montevideo is a small city is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it can be frustrating in some ways, but it's also really nice in other ways. The fact that Montevideo, the city, still has aspects of small town community and friendliness and openness, that can be really charming and really sweet. But if I'm being totally honest, my initial impression of the country was it's small. There's not a lot of options when it comes to vegetarian or vegan foods. And a lot of people here speak English, which was very helpful to me at the time, considering my Spanish was not very good. That was another first impression, actually, is that the Spanish I thought I knew was basically nothing. What is your favorite thing about living in Uruguay? This is going to sound very cliche, but the people. I have found a really incredible community of people here in Uruguay, and who knows, maybe I could find a similarly incredible community anywhere in the world. And I think Australians are actually probably warmer and friendlier up front than what Uruguayans are. But when it comes to maybe the life that I'm trying to live here, for example, making videos and making content, people here, at least the ones who come and say anything to my face or who comment, people here are really, like, impressed. They're really they think it's exciting and they ask questions about it and they're interested. Whereas in Australia, there's this weird culture around like, oh, what, you want to be famous then? Like, oh, you think you're so cool? Like, it's very hard to describe, and I don't have the time to talk about it right now. But yeah, my favorite thing is definitely the people that I've met in the community, and just that closeness and that small townness of Montevideo I personally really like. But I also know that for Uruguayans it can be a bit annoying that it is such a small town vibe when you go out and everybody knows everybody, and like if you're going out to the club, the chances of you running into your ex or your ex's sister or cousin or like that kind of thing does happen a lot here. But to me, I love it. What is something that annoys you or a dislike about Uruguay? I could make a new video about this topic just on its own, because there's not a lot of things that I openly dislike or hate about the country. There are a lot of small things that annoy me, and those small things do add up. Don't get it twisted. Of course, there are things about Australia that I also don't like or that annoy me. But if I'm going to just pick one thing for this video, for me to live as green and eco-friendly as I did in Australia without even thinking about it, here requires a lot of planning, a lot of effort, and like it's not common for houses to just have a recycling bin. And if you live in the city in an apartment, it's not common to have a recycling bin right out the front of your house on your street. Of course, you can collect your recyclables and take them to a specific place to recycle them, but you really have to go to the extra effort to do it. It's not as easy as just, okay, I'm putting this in the bin, I'm putting this in the recycling. On bin day, you put the recycling out on the street and it gets collected and it's done. So that does annoy me, but again, living in a smaller country in Latin America, while the environment does affect everyone, it's not as high on the priority list as it is for Australians, and I'm aware of that, but it does still hurt me to see people who don't understand how to recycle. What is one thing that surprised you when you moved to Uruguay? As I mentioned earlier, a lot of things surprised me about Uruguay because of the fact that, one, I did not do much research, and two, growing up in Australia, it was very easy to be ignorant about South America, about Latin America, because it's so far away. There's not a huge population of Latin Americans in Australia compared to the other multicultural communities we have from Asia, even from Africa, from other parts of Europe like Italy, Greece. Those are the cultures in Australia that are a lot more prevalent, at least in the communities where I grew up. So speaking Spanish or learning about the different types of cultures within Latin America, it just didn't really happen in my childhood. So my impression of South America, at least as a kid, was a lot more, okay, the classic Mexican vibe, because you see that more often in movies, maybe a bit of Colombia, maybe a bit of Brazil, that kind of more tropical, vibrant, colorful. That's kind of what I knew about South America as a kid, not really much about Argentina or Uruguay or more of the gaucho lifestyle. So yeah, it definitely surprised me arriving here to know how strong the meat culture was here. I did know that it was, beef country, cattle farming country, but I just wasn't really aware of how much that would affect everything in Uruguay. And again, as someone who does not eat meat, adjusting to that was a bit difficult. What is the stupidest thing you did after moving here, or a mistake you made? This is hard because I have done a lot of things that maybe I shouldn't have, but I would say in terms of something that I think could help other people, a big mistake I made when I arrived was not going more out of my way to make local friends. This is something I'm doing a lot more now, 4 years in, but I really just took advantage of the fact that many Uruguayans can speak English and want to speak English. They like to practice their English. So I made friends with the people who could speak English. I made friends with other foreigners here in Uruguay, and we would all hang out and speak in English. And then 2 years later, it's like, oh, I wonder why my Spanish isn't improving. It's obviously not improving because I'm not using it that much. So I would definitely say that a big mistake I made was not trying harder and forcing myself to speak Spanish right from the start. Again, to give myself a little bit of leeway, it was the pandemic, so I didn't really see many people, and I did start taking language classes online during that time with Uruguayan or Argentinian teachers so that I was practicing local Spanish, but it's still not the same as forming friendships in Spanish, because some of my best friends today, still in Uruguay, we tend to speak more in English still, because that's the language we kind of became friends in. Even though we both know that we could be speaking in Spanish, we just end up speaking more English. So definitely try to just pretend that you don't understand English and just force yourself to only do Spanish. What is one thing you miss about your home country other than family and friends? Definitely the multicultural food options. Even in Adelaide, where I'm from, which is again a smaller city compared to Sydney, the availability of so many different cuisines is incredible. I miss Thai food. I miss good Mexican food. You'd be surprised how, again, maybe this is just my ignorance, but I thought being in Latin America, having good Mexican food would be pretty easy, but Uruguayans don't like much spice. So that's a generalization. Not all Uruguayans, but a lot of Uruguayans do not like chili. So the Mexican food here is funnily enough, it's white people Mexican food because they really dull down the spiciness, and I miss flavor, I miss spice, I miss good Indian food, good Thai food. There's a really good Sudanese place, stuff like that you just can't find here. They do have Indian food here, but not so much in my city where I live now. You definitely have to go into Montevideo for that. Near where I live now, there is a pretty good Armenian place. The vegetarian options there is basically like falafel and hummus, which was really good, but it's not that spicy richness that I'm looking for. So the food is what I miss the most about Australia. Also the beaches, of course, but Uruguay does have some beautiful beaches as well. They're just not quite the same as the Australian ones. Do you feel safe in Uruguay? Most of the time, yes. I have, since making my safety in Uruguay video, I have been robbed earlier this year. They only took my handbag and there was money in it, some credit cards that I had to get cancelled and renewed, but luckily for me, my phone was in my pocket. So after that, I didn't feel super safe immediately after that, but it happened at night, like a block away from a club. So I made the mistake of trying to walk to the bus stop, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning. Obviously I shouldn't have done that, but I think because every other time I've gone out in Uruguay, it has felt so safe. I just got into that false sense of security, and I was paying attention, but clearly not as much as I should have been, and I just should not have walked alone. So in the daytime, I feel very safe. I do still pay attention, I am still aware of my surroundings at all times, but I feel safe. At night, again, what's likely going to happen is you will be robbed, your phone or your wallet will be taken, but it's not that common that anything other than that will happen. For more information about this, you can go watch my safety in Uruguay video, because I do still stand by everything I said in that video. I just hadn't personally experienced anything like this at that time. So I do have a little personal defense keychain that I carry around. It's got a pepper spray, some knuckle stabby things, and something to cut straps if you get tied up. I don't know. Safety as a woman is an interesting thing because you never feel 100% safe, but I I feel a lot safer here than I think I would in many other places. I do feel safer in Adelaide than I do in 𝒐𝒊𝒍𝒎𝒅, but honestly that says more about Adelaide than it does about Uruguay. Do you feel accepted by the locals? Mostly, yes. There are of course a few people on social media, in my comments on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, who like to tell me to leave the country, that the second I say one thing that's even slightly negative, they're like, get out, just go home, leave, blah, 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 you're so stupid, if you hate it so much, get out. That might sound crazy, but genuinely that's what the comments sound like. It's ridiculous. But that is the minority. The minority just tend to be the ones who shout the loudest. Most Uruguayans are so kind, so welcoming, so intrigued. They always want to know, oh, where are you from? What's your name? How long have you been here? What do you like? What do you like about it? Like, what do you do here? Like, tell me more. They're welcoming and excited, and some of my best friends are Uruguayans. So I definitely think for the most part, I feel very accepted. I'm not sure if that's because I am like the right kind of foreign. I would love to interview someone who is maybe of darker skin than me from different parts of the world. Again, Australia is one of those countries that here in Latin America, it's crazy to say this, but Australia is considered like almost exotic and like far away, but in a way that's like exciting, and people here in Uruguay love the idea of Australia, and they love to learn about Australia, and a lot of them want to go to Australia one day or to live in Australia one day. So it's like I have that really working to my benefit. I am not sure if every foreigner who comes here feels as welcome and accepted as I do. I would love to think so, but I don't know, and that's what we'll discover with the rest of this series. How do you feel about your Spanish? I feel pretty confident in my Spanish today. When I first arrived, I thought I had maybe like a B1 level of Spanish, but honestly I probably had like an A1, A2 level, purely because of the fact that my confidence was so low and I had never actually practiced conversation before. I had done the grammar, I knew how to communicate, but then I arrived here and tú, the conjugation for tú, like second person, just ignore all of that. Suddenly we're using vos. Everything just went out the window, and that really took a hit to my confidence because I'm already a shy person. And then one negative comment about my Spanish just like set me back months of progress. Now I have come a long way since then. I can hold conversations in Spanish. I can understand a lot in Spanish when natives are speaking. Even in group situations, I feel pretty good. And there are of course things that I still don't understand. There are still slang that I don't fully understand. There are still topics and tenses that I don't know how to use, that I don't know how to speak in, but I'm getting better every week, and the more I speak it, the easier it gets. Do you now feel like you speak Spanish like a Uruguayan? Yes and no. Of course, I do not sound like a local by any means. However, there are things that I say that do now have that accent, like plaja, Uruguaya. I definitely aim to speak like that as much as I can, despite the fact that I originally learned playa. But I don't really use a lot of slang. I don't talk like a young person I don't speak like a teenager or a young adult in Spanish. I'm very much like, I make sentences like correctly. I don't use enough slang, and that's something I'm working on currently to try to sound more local in that regard. But the Spanish I speak is from here in a way. I don't know. You tell me in the comments what you think about my Spanish. Was it easy to make friends in Uruguay? Why or why not? For me, it was really easy at first to make friends with other foreigners because you have a lot to talk about, you have a lot of shared experiences, and even now going to Miss events, I have made a lot of friends there, it's making it a lot easier to talk to people because you're in an environment that's centered around making friends. My friends that I made years ago was mostly through social media, I essentially did the modern day equivalent of writing a note in the newspaper, like an advertisement of young woman seeking friends, please call this number. I posted on social media a couple videos after I already had a bit of a following saying, hi, like, I'm Maddie, I live here, this is a bit about me, I don't have any friends, if you want to go get coffee, let me know. And then people responded and we would chat on social media. I'd make sure they were a real person and then go meet them in a public place, and that's how I met a lot of people originally. But it's kind of like internet dating, you have to get to know people very slowly and it doesn't always work out, but that's how I've made most of my friends. Recently, it's been a lot easier because once you make one good friend, if they have a group of friends, they can then invite you to things and bring you along to that, and then your circle grows exponentially. I would say it's easy to make friends here if you put in the effort. You can't sit at home. Again, I do not study. I do not work outside of the house. I work from home by myself on my laptop. So if I don't put in the special effort to talk to people, to meet people, to hang out and get to know people, I could easily just sit at home and hang out with my cats all day, and that's fine for a little while, but then you start to really crave human interaction. So if you join clubs, if you join the running club, if you start playing a sport, if you take a dance class, or you attend university, or you get a job surrounded by other people, and you put the effort in to say hi to people and ask them what they're doing, and, oh, what are you doing on the weekend? Do you want to go get a coffee? Most people will say yes and maybe they're not going to be a best friend forever, but maybe through them you'll meet someone else and someone else and someone else, and then eventually you will have this big group of friends. So that's what I would recommend, and that has been my experience. It hasn't always been easy. I've made some incredibly close friends who then left. Some of my friends I have now are only here temporarily, and when they leave, it's going to be really sad. And that's just kind of part of it when you make friends from people who are not from this city or who are not from your own city. I will say making friends with Uruguayans for me has been harder than it was with foreigners, because most Uruguayans already have a close group of friends, so they're not necessarily looking for friends in the same way that other foreigners are. But again, once you make one Uruguayan friend, they are likely to have that group of friends who they can then introduce you to, and then you went from having one Uruguayan friend to having 10 Uruguayan friends in like 2 days. So yeah, that's how I feel about making friends here. Uruguay is often criticized for being an expensive country to live in. How do you feel about that? I would say that I fully agree that it's an expensive place to live. It has been a struggle recently, but that has been more based on employment or lack of employment for us in the last couple of months, but now things are turning around again. I would say that compared to Australia, to live here comfortably, more people here have 2 jobs. More people here work 2 jobs, still live with their parents. In Australia, for example, people my age, I'm almost 30, I'm 29 years old. My younger sister and her fiance, my older sister, a bunch of my friends, they're all looking to purchase property or have already purchased property. My older sister and her husband, they purchased a house. This is their second or third, I think, property that they have owned. My younger sister is hoping to get into the property market as soon as possible. They've been saving up and they have a bunch of money saved. My friends own apartments or units or complexes or whatever. Not a single one of my friends here in Uruguay is looking at buying anything. And they're all around the same age. I do have friends here who are much younger than me, who are in their early 20s, but I also have friends here who are in their 30s, their early 30s, their mid 30s, and they're still not looking at purchasing property. They're just looking at, okay, maybe they're finally moving out on their own into their first apartment. That is the difference here. If you have a good job here, you can definitely live an incredible life here, but things are a lot more expensive. And I know that with my personal income, if we lived in Brazil or if we lived in Argentina, I mean, Argentina's changing, but 2 years ago, if we lived in Argentina on this same income, we would be living really nicely. There are countries we could go to that would have cheaper cost of living, but you get what you pay for, and here, the quality of life, the quality of the healthcare, the quality of the economy, again, you get what you pay for, and that's just the reality of it. Okay, this next section is just a quick little rundown of cost of living here. So my questions for other people are going to be, what neighborhood do you live in? What kind of accommodation do you live in? How much does it cost? Blah, blah, blah. So I live in Solymar in Ciudad de la Costa, Canelones. So I live outside of Montevideo. It would take me maybe 45 minutes in a car to drive into Pocitos, or about an hour. In an hour on the bus, I could be in Centro, in the city. So it's not that far away, but it is across the region borders. So I'm technically in a different department, not in Montevideo. Because of that, things here are much cheaper. I live in, well, they call it a 2-bedroom house, but the second bedroom is a loft upstairs that I use as my sewing studio. You can go check out our move-in vlogs if you want to see more details around this property, but we pay 20,000 pesos per month to live here, and there are no gastos comunes because it is a house, not an apartment. Now, what do I think of this neighborhood? I, most of the time, would prefer to be in Montevideo just for convenience reasons. However, in the summertime, and now that it's spring and the weather, today was 30 degrees and I could go down to the beach and watch the sunset. In the warm weather, I love being here. I love being close to the beach. I love that it's more peaceful here than it is in Montevideo. I love that there's no construction noises around me. I feel like I can breathe. We have a garden, we have space for the cats and the dogs. But it is a lot less convenient than when I lived in Montevideo. And I would definitely recommend, if you're first moving here, to live within Montevideo for a year or two, and then look at potentially going elsewhere if you want to. Okay, I'm running out of time and my battery is flashing, so I'm going to close this out here. When I'm speaking to my guests in the future, I am going to have a final little rapid fire section to close this out. But I feel like with my other videos, you should be able to fill in the gaps of my favorites. And I normally do want to end these videos with just like a last random piece of advice for coming to Uruguay. But again, this channel has so many videos from me, so much content, that I don't feel like I need to add anything specific here. My main piece of advice is just to go out there, try hard to talk to locals, try hard to speak in Spanish as best you can, try mate, try all the food, try alfajores, try dulce de leche, try as much as you can and say yes to as much as you can while you're here, and you're bound to have a good time. But thank you for watching, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy. If you have any specific questions you would like me to ask my future guests, then please comment down below as soon as possible, because I'm going to start the interviews within the next couple of days. But yeah, if you want to participate, comment down below or message me over on Instagram. If you are another foreigner like me living in Uruguay, please get in contact. I would love to speak with you, and I will see you very soon with a brand new episode, as well as more regularly scheduled video content to come. Chin chin, and see you later. How long have you been living in Uruguay?
Been 7 years.
Okay.
Just marked 7 years. Yeah. I'm not gonna answer that question. I don't want to get canceled.
I'll cancel myself, not you.
Yes, it's hard here because of that. What I mentioned, it's so small that probably you meet people that it's either friends of someone you've been with or that you kind of met already, you know. So